Okay, so welcome everyone to this. It's actually kind of like a nice sunny day, and we're just going to move forward with our presentation now. Okay, but we're going to start off with the land acknowledgement. The land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anasazic, the Chippewa and Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I also wish to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. So tonight, the presentation is we will have questions and answers at the end of the presentation, and you can put your questions in the Q&A throughout the presentation. But during that time, we will ask that you respect all participants who are interacting, act professionally in a courteous manner, and privacy is paramount here. We want to ensure that that information cannot be shared without permission being granted. And we also ask that people act in full compliance with the TDSB Code of Conduct. Okay. Tonight's presentation, this is the agenda. We're going to be doing the introduction, school council workshop review, something about new community liaison growth, the conversation series, and the and PCCEO updates, and at the final part, we will have our Q&A. We were going to do introductions. Unfortunately, Michelle Monroe, the parent caregiver community engagement coordinator,
is in the room.
Is in the room. Thank you and welcome. Okay, you can introduce yourself and I will introduce myself. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Michelle Monroe. I'm the central coordinator for parent caregiver engagement with the TDSB.
Perfect. I'm Ricardo Francis. I'm the school council and community liaison lead with the parent caregiver community engagement office, and I work with Michelle Monroe. Thank you. Move on. Okay, so this is kind of like our end of year wrap up. So we just want to speak to the things that we've accomplished at the parent caregiver community engagement office. Our office led the completion of 180 operational tasks to modernize TDSB governance, including creating the School Council 101 manual, succession guidelines, and redesign the website and improve navigation links. We also developed toolkits for the school statement of needs, the school improvement process, along with regulatory templates for Ontario Regulation 612. And additionally, we launched a board-wide professional development training for principals and office administration on budget, governance, and handling of parent caregiver inquiries to school councils. The other thing that was a task that we really felt, even from I started this role, was we have to do something about the bylaws. We would have liked to do something about the Regulation 612, seeing it's from 1998, but that is ministry governed. So the goal is, and I'm going to be very transparent. These have not been approved, but we are to accommodate different needs and promote long-term stability. And so we want to create three flexible and adaptive versions of school council guidelines. And these are currently under review. The first one is just a standard version, which is just all about Regulation 612 and what you got to do to be in compliance with that. And that's just a simple one. The second one is a little bit more in depth, as it adds clear meeting protocol and management to support productive discussion. The final one incorporates all the prior two, and it has a heavy focus on restorative practice and dispute resolution, and that is tailored to the broader school community as well. Okay, so now we're going to move to our poll question. I'm just going to bring that up for you. One moment, please. I can get this mouse over there to that screen. Just one moment. Okay, so it's going to launch it. And as you can see, so what we're looking at is, as we look ahead to the next school year, which area do you anticipate will be your school council's most significant challenge or priority? And you can answer there's multiple ones you can answer on this one. I'm just going to give this to 7:15. Just give me another minute. Thank you for your feedback on that. And the results will be also shared with you. Okay. So now we just go to our next slide. Okay, so now we're going to, throughout the year, we did a number of presentations, and we had taken polls during those presentations, as we are taking a poll now. And the poll was to really give us an understanding as to what the needs is, whether what we're doing is actually having the impact, and what we need to do better. So we're going to show you some of our poll results, and explain which. So this presentation was on effective school council, and these are the results from that, the poll results from that presentation. And the purpose of this presentation was to give school council members the tools to support one another, increase participation, and to provide opportunities to grow their volunteer base. So it's really about how to run a school council in an effective, harmonious, and productive way. Which, and the other big part is also to be inclusive, and that was a big part of our presentation, was to speak to how to bring in people from the outer margins, and also to allow for people to have the opportunity to participate and to give space for that to occur. The next presentation was on civil discourse. Now, this was a follow-up on the presentation that was a brilliant presentation that was given on civil discourse during the conversation series. And so we want to build on that impact of that presentation and to provide additional insights and tools. And the goal of this type of share in terms of the civil discourse, it's a greater harmony and resilience in our school councils. We throughout the year we were noticing that there's a number of things that were coming up in school councils that led to kind of friction within school councils, and our goal was to address that friction. And the other thing I want to speak to is because I speak to a lot about our goal, and I just want to speak to and thank Nancy Angevine Sands for her support, participation, guidance, um, knowledge in terms of being able to work with her, and I really appreciate that opportunity throughout the year to work with her, and yeah, it was just really a pleasure working with Nancy and to work with somebody that has such a depth of knowledge in the area of parent engagement. And I'm just going to move to our next poll, and it's our next poll result, and this is our presentation on Let's Collaborate. And this presentation came about as a result. Well, I'm just going to put it this way: the Let's Collaborate presentation was to demonstrate how tools like Regulation 612 and your school council bylaws can provide a good foundation for your daily operations, as well as tools to advance agendas and for better communication skills and to interact with membership and administration. We also provided tools of some really great individuals like Brene Brown that provided opportunities for school council members to look at how a school council can look like and how and why it's so important that schools have parent caregiver engagement. And this is the last poll result that we're sharing. And this was the end of year succession plan. And this was about not only how to end the year with your financials and your activity reports, it was also about how to best support the new incoming membership and to provide strategies and tools to make school councils functional and harmonious and sustainable. Now, I'd like to speak to the fact that, in terms of the overall results of the presentation, they were positive, but again, we're looking to improve things. So as you can see, specifically on this one, um, you see that the 75% is the low participation. And these are the things that we really want to, we really, the upcoming resources, which I'm going to speak to later, is really to assist with this. The other thing is this shared digital folder. The importance of the shared digital um, folder is so that it's part of the succession planning because you have information because you're doing things on a daily, and and there's little things that you do here and there that you tend to forget about. But having this digital folder that houses all the things that you do helps you later, as if you're continue on as a school council, but also helps the new membership. So you're not reinventing like if you went about the process of getting people for a function, how did that process go? Who did you use? All that information should be housed there. Um, and so one of the positive thing is that the goal was that people actually were thinking about what can I do next to help those new individuals, the new membership, those people that we're trying to recruit to have an understanding of what is involved in the school council, because we really need to broaden our scope in terms of that knowledge, and also broaden our ability to recruit people better, and also broaden our ability to share what really a school council is about and what is the intention and benefits of a school council. Okay, so we have another poll question. Just one moment, please. Getting my mouse over to the next screen. It's having a little difficulty here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so poll 2, I'm just going to launch that for you. So poll 2 is about which one of these 4 actions is most realistic for the school council to complete by September 30th, 2026. That's next year. So if you could start that poll now, thank you. And this will go to 7:25, so another minute and a half. Okay, thank you for your responses. The poll is now ending. Okay. Okay, we're now going to go into to speak to the school council innovation grant. And before we go into the results, I just want to also give a big thanks to Margaret Horvath. She was instru instrumental in actually making this a big success. She was front, back, and all around ensuring that that this gets done. This was I, I I know Michelle's here, so I can't really speak, but this was actually given to me at a late stage, but we managed to do it effectively, and the results will speak to itself as to how much work was put into this, and how much support was given by Margaret and others in our office, and actually throughout the TDSB, because our vetting included um, support from various departments of the TDSB that were gracious enough to offer their time for vetting. So this year we had 190 that applied and 110 approved. Now our intention was to approve as many as possible, and that was our budget. The 110 is representative of the entire school council innovation grant funding. So that's what we attempted to use. Um, Next slide. 1 second. Sorry. So here is the results of the school council innovation ground, the breakdown according to the different focuses. So mental health and well-being being the number one this year, as was last year. Each year, it's the number one, followed by human rights, equity, anti-oppression, and literacy, numeracy, and health, living, and food sovereignty. This was really great. We had 83 applicants in the prior year. This year we had 190 applicants. That was a 129% increase. I was so elated by having that increase and those participants that involved themselves in this, and the great work throughout the year that the the school councils and parents and caregiver put into trying to making these things happen. But the applications were extraordinary this year, and I really want to acknowledge each and every one of you for the absolute great work in doing this for your school communities. I know it is not just a work of the passion for all of you, because it was demonstrated in the work that was done and has been done in order to make these events happen. Okay, so this is our interim report because we can't give you the final report because the final report, and just a reminder, is due June 19th for everybody that still haven't done it. It's due June 19th of this year, 2026. So please get those done. So the interim report, as you can see, 84 of the 119 schools, and this is at May 15th, had completed and were actively involved in the projects, and 35 were in the beginning stages, which is great as well, and which gives us a 100% confidence that we are going to have all the money spent and all those presentations done. So again, just a reminder, it's June 19th that they're due. And now we're just going to move to the dispute resolution and restorative justice interventions. So here's our data that we got in terms of reviewing those frictional pieces that were happening. I'm just going to read you the little points that we had. So our office, the Parent Caregiver Engagement Office, proactively manages operational disputes, resolving an average of 18 localized, you're going to use friction points board-wide per week. This is in addition to the daily emails, queries, and policy reviews. Now we use our goal was to use a proactive alternative dispute resolution processes. And this led to a 90% success rate in restoring collaborative alignment, clarifying the rules under Regulation 612 and under our bylaw template. And someone asked if I can make the screen a little bit bigger. Unfortunately, this is large as I can. You may be able to, on your device, you may be able to, if it depends, you may see a plus sign, or you may be able to open your screen larger by going to your settings and your viewing settings and moving it from, if it's 100% to 150%, that would be a suggestion. So I'm just going back to our 90% success rate and what this meant for us. So the whole, you know what? I just got to speak to the. Well, actually, the result was that we out of our 584 schools, we were the intention was to maintain a welcoming, cohesive, and productive school council environments. The 90% resolution rate speaks volumes to the commitment of both school councils and administration to resolving issues. And effectively, it the goal led to vibrant school councils and supporting school communities. Now, of course, I'm saying this, and some people may be saying, "Yeah, sure, that's not really what happened in our school." Yes, we know that, but the goal was still there. The intentionality was still there to have this resolution, to have people's voices heard. My commitment throughout this was to allow both sides to be equally heard and to balance things in accordance with policies and procedures. So that was the goal there. And now we're moving to, thankfully, because I've been talking for so long, we're moving to Michelle Monroe. She's as she indicated earlier, she's the central coordinator, parent, caregiver, and community engagement office. She's been an absolute great, demonstrated great leadership throughout. She has given us as a department opportunities that we never would have had. I just want to point out some of the other things that because we're speaking this presentation is about school council, but I just want to speak to other things that are as the parent caregiver communication engagement office of one. So the hackathon. This is a thing that really is about demonstrating group ingenuity and abilities. Our group won 2 years in a row. We also won a special achievement award with our, oh my God, I'm running a blank here. Um, oh, Michelle, help me out with this. The oh, what Babbitt's team. What was it called again? You there? Is Michelle there? Oh, she may be involved in another meeting. Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, so this is the project in terms of food sustainability, where we provided um, powers in schools to grow food, and as a result of this program, we now have hired, I believe it was 50 students during the summer to support these operations throughout the year. So this is a fantastic um, program that was built. And yes, and thank you, Nora, for the program was called Pearl, and it was a gem. And I really, these are a number of things. So when I speak to what Michelle has allowed and provided guidance for, it allowed us to support schools in a way that was the sky's the limit. If things came along, we had great literacy programs, literacy programs. We helped with food sovereignty. We gave out something like 650 jackets, which our members went out and um, gathered from the various community. We had, we were able to get food cards. It's just a number of things, and as well as all the work that we were able to support with school councils throughout the board and parents and caregivers and their undying support in terms of providing resources and activities for our students. It was, it, it, I if I had 40 hours in a day, I wouldn't be able to keep up with all that was done in collaboration with our schools, administration, and staff as well, with the parent caregiver community engagement office. And now, if Michelle, if you're available, I will move on. If she's not available, because she
Hearing
did
me?
say, oh, you're here? Perfect. Okay.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm hearing an echo, so I was trying to fix the echo. Are you hearing me as an echo as well?
It's stopped now, I believe. Yeah. Speak
Okay,
again.
great. Testing, echo. All right, I'll just go ahead so I don't slow down the meeting. So thank you, Ricardo. Thank you for the updates. Thank you to all those who have joined us this evening. And we appreciate your patience through the multiple polls we have for you this evening. I'll speak to why the multiple polls in a few minutes, but we thought it was prudent that we provide you with an update as to the Parent Caregiver Engagement Office. Some of you may are aware that our district has been going through significant restructuring and realignments. The board has been under supervision for some time, and I think you've all heard the minister say clearly what his intentions are for supervision in TDSB and the importance of the TDSB balancing budgets. So within the entire budget process this year, the Parent Community Engagement Office, along with the Model Schools for Inner Cities, as you've heard, which the staff that supports the Model Schools for Inner Cities, the parent caregiver engagement workers, all of us have been deemed redundant with the TDSB. And so effectively the end of this school year, August, the Parent Caregiver and Community Engagement Office will be closed. I will no longer be with the district, and the parent caregiver engagement workers will be moving through a standard staffing process within the TDSB. So saying that, that has some implications for the way school council supports will be provided, but also in terms of some of the roles and the functions that our office played. So what we wanted to do this evening was provide you an update, but also share with you what we are thinking about what we can put in place for you that will ensure that you'll have some resources to continue to support your work starting in the fall of next year. And so the polls, some of the polls is just really collecting some info for ourselves so we can do some thinking and planning about the types of tools we leave that may be helpful for you. And we'll be speaking a bit about that a little later, but also updating you as to the types of what we're thinking about in terms of resources and where we'll leave resources so it's fully and accessible to you. Next slide, please, Ricardo. So, as you know, well, I'm hoping most of you now will know that what we have tried to do throughout the years is have a main page on the TDSB site, public, that's easily accessible by parents and caregivers, but also all council members with resources. And there, you're able to go and you can get all questions about school council answered. And the thought around that was to make it a one-stop shop for school council chairs, members to gather the information that they need, when they need it, and how they need it. We also provided a lot of information in our YouTube site, where we try to maintain videos and workshops for you to be able to go to and watch at your leisure and when time allows you to continue to do the work that you do as school councils. And so what we're thinking now are ways in which we can ensure elements of the school council page remains intact. The areas that are standard neutral information so that you will be able, or your new council or your chairs will be able to go and get some generic basic information around school council operations. So you heard Ricardo speak earlier around bylaws. So what we want to do is leave templates. And I know there are lots of questions and commentaries. We've received them about bylaws. And our thinking is really just about to provide options to council. There's some councils who just want the legislative requirements. And the legislative requirements is that you will have bylaws that address issues of conflict resolutions, and elections. For some council members, that suffices. So we're going to give you a template like that. For others, they say, would really love to have a little more details about how do councils operate? How should we be operating? And so we'll do a second template that you may use. There's no requirement to use the templates that we're providing, but we know sometimes school councils get new chairs, new members who don't know what it looks like or what it should entail. So we offer these templates for your information to use at your will or not. And the third one that we will be offering is a little one that goes into really detail that will include things like what are the roles and responsibilities of a school council member. And we thought what that does is just provide options and help for school councils who are at different levels of their engagement next year. Elections are required each year. Some councils may get all new, which means they'll need as much supports as they can get. And then there are others that will continue who will have their bylaws. So we're thinking about resources that will be on the board's main site. We'll leave the school council link there. We'll be working with comms to figure out our communications department, to figure out the ways in which we are able to leave information that's easily accessible and that can help you to continue to do the great work that some of you are doing. All right, and I'll leave it at that. Ricardo, back to you. You are muted, Ricardo. We're not hearing you.
Okay, skip one of the
Ricardo,
polls.
Ricardo.
Yes.
Ricardo, there are a number of questions that have come in under Q&A. I just wondered if you wanted to go through them before you do.
I was just writing a response to one of them right now. Yeah. So the Q&A we're going to do at the end. I'm just going to allow Michelle to finish the conversation series, and then we'll move on. Okay. Thank you.
So I also wanted to take this moment for those who know about the conversation series. So this is one of the initiatives our office started, and it really started during COVID. And it was an opportunity for parents and caregivers to get together to hear from speakers on topics that came from the parent caregiver community. And it went over so well throughout period and post COVID. So it's something we continue to do annually, where we offered a conversation from a speaker based on a topic that comes from the parents and caregivers each year. And this year we had two. One was on civil discourse. And we chose civil discourse because we're hearing from a lot of councils who were seeking supports around ways in which they can manage the challenges and the conflicts that they were seeing emerging in council, and others where they're feeling that council was not effectively managing the challenges that, or the disagreements, or the differing views that were coming out through council. And we thought a session on civil discourse would have been a great tool, a tool for school council members and chairs, a toolbox that will enable them to understand how do we move forward and how do we handle civil discourse, which was just simply how do we speak to each other when we fundamentally agree on key things, and do we have to fundamentally agree on things to have a civil conversation? And of course the answer to that is no. We don't have to agree on everything to engage in civil discourse. We just have to be committed to following some key principles. If you missed that conversation, it is on our YouTube page, and I encourage you to take a look at it, because the speaker, Randy Boyega, he offered some great tools and key principles for school councils and for all of us. The tools could be used at any point in our discourse, meaning in our conversations, about how we have conversations when we're in spaces where with differing views, differing opinions, and some key principles around that. The second session was the art of parent caregiver leadership in evolving times. And this one was really to hear from a speaker who was talking to parents and caregivers when you are in an environment of shifting and change and transition. And this came because a lot of school council parents were seeing the changes in the transition happening in our system, and was trying to figure out how do we manage, how do we navigate this space when there's so much happening so quickly and changing. And that's also available on our website. It's on our YouTube page, sorry. It's there for a limited period because the speaker only allowed us a certain amount of days for it to be there. So I encourage you to listen to that session if you have not. It's great tools and great information that can help guide your school council work. All right. Thank you, Ricardo.
A moment. Going back to our presentation. I've answered a number of the questions in the Q&A, and I just want to move to this quick poll question. It's a yes or no, so it'll be very quick for those who have had their fill of polls. Okay, we're just going to give 1 minute for this one. Okay, I'm stopping the share. A number of you said you weren't aware of what the end of year report is about, and for those members, you can ask your school council chairs. For those of you who are school council chairs and aren't aware of what that report entails, please reach out to me. I'm available, and I'll provide you with the details as to what that report is. I'll provide you with the link and everything else for that report. We're just going to move to our next slide. Just having a little difficulty here with this mouse today.
So while you do that, Ricardo, could we take a question so we're not sitting?
Yep, perfect. Go ahead.
All right. So one of the questions was about how many people are attending the sessions today. We're seeing in our numbers right now at 55. It started at 40 when I entered. It's now at 55. So I'm assuming slowly growing. The next question from Crystal is how many principals receive the training? I'm going to say, Crystal, about 80% of all of our principals receive training. The way I do this each year is I visit all families of schools meetings. I get on the agendas and then I do what I call my road trip with principals that speak to roles, responsibilities around engagement broadly, and then school council specifically. The next question, let me know when you're ready, Ricardo, because we can always come back.
I'm ready right now. I'm ready now.
Okay.
So, what Michelle was speaking about earlier was how are we going to move forward in the absence of the parent community engagement office. And so what we're talking about is self-sustainability. And that's what that is about is by ensuring that the school council membership is fully aware of what Regulation 612 is, because this is kind of the foundation as to how a school council is to operate, what that is to look like, and this is ministry guidelines, so we have to use it. So the whole purpose is to, to and use the school regulations 612 to provide uniform bylaws that actually work for your school, um, uh, provide democratic and annual elections, and provide a level of consistent financial reporting, and also consistency in terms of those expectations as to the roles and responsibilities of the membership. And the other one is, what are we going to do in terms of those disputes that are going to continue, as in any environment disputes happen, and this is to give you the tools to resolve disputes independently, using your bylaws to establish a conflict resolution pathways. And this is by first working directly with the school administration and your family and school superintendent in, well, not directly, if things don't resolve themselves, that you have that opportunity to work with your administrator and your superintendent if need be. But the hope is that you'll be able to resolve that locally. But in those cases where that is unable to happen, you have additional tools as well. And finally, it's the support. And this is about really bringing in resources from at the board. So these could be advisory committees, such as our Parent Involvement Advisory Committee. These are individuals that you can rely on in terms of supporting you to resolve these inquiries that you have around the governance, school council governance, and other issues. And as well, as I'm going to be speaking later as to a tool that we are currently working on. And I'm saying we the office, and also working in collaboration with Nancy Angevine Sands, our school council consultant, to provide you with resources to best support you in the absence of the parent caregiver community engagement office. Okay, and now we're moving to the Q&A. So we'll move to the any other questions that people may have had. Michelle, are you able to see some of them? Okay, so I see Chris. Michelle, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I'm just going to read you a message here from a PAC member, Crystal Stewart. TDSB's mission statement says we value partnerships with parents and caregivers. One of the strategic direction is achieve. All students reach high levels of achievement, success, and personal development. How can these be fulfilled without anyone responsible for these things and zero staff to support it? The website is going to be the only support for us.
Thanks for the question, Crystal. So the expectation is not that the website can be the be all end all, and it certainly cannot replace the office. What we are trying to do in this period is ensure that there is some information available for school councils and parents and caregivers when the fall begins. So our thinking is wherever we can, however we can, we're going to leave some resources. I do not believe that the board has lost interest in engagement. It had a difficult decision to make, and it had to be made, and it was made. And the work now for the district is to ascertain the ways in which parents and caregivers and also school councils get the supports that are required as we move through without the office. I'm sure that's going to be on the minds of our executives and our superintendents, and most importantly principals, as to what practices needs to be enhanced or improved or changed to ensure that parents at the school level and school councils are able to get what they need to effectively operate. I also want to speak to the Student and Family Support Office that was mandated by the ministry. That office is there as a vehicle for parents to put forth their thoughts and ideas directly or get addressed any issues that they feel are unresolved. And while it is not the office and it plays a very different function than our office, it is a tool that parents and caregivers have access to moving forward.
Okay, the next question is how many PSAB reports are need to be completed? It's one, and I'll be sharing the link at the in the next slide.
Ricardo,
Yes, the meeting.
Ricardo, there were a couple of questions that came in about the SCIG reports and what they are and who has to fill it out and when do they have to be in by.
Okay, I replied to them. I guess it didn't come out live, so I'm just going to reiterate what I said and what I typed. So the School Council Innovation Grant, which is the SCIG report, is due. So this was for those applicants that were successful and received funding. So those reports are due on June 19th. And that information is available on our school council website. It's a Google form that you need to complete, and all your goods receipts and everything should have been provided to your office administrator. And that's I hopefully that's answers the question. Nancy, is there anything I missed in that question?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Just
perfect.
when it's due and where to find it.
Yeah, June 19th, yes. Okay, being cognizant of the time here.
There's one question that came in. Will superintendents play a role in supporting school councils following the termination of the PCCEO?
I'll take that one. So, the function of the superintendent is actually to ensure that schools are operating effectively. And engagement begins at the local school level with the leadership of the principal. So that's where that initial role begins. The superintendent's role is to ensure that those things are actually happening at the school level. And if council and parents and caregivers have echoed up to superintendent that that's not happening, then it's the responsibility of the superintendent to engage with the school to figure out ways to ensure that school councils are operating and working effectively in collaboration with the principal. But the leadership of engagement at the school level is that of the principal.
Thank you for that, Michelle.
There's another, sorry, there's one more.
I see this question here in regards to the police reference checks.
Yeah.
School council funds should not be used for that, but I'm going to say should, and this is a number of factors, and you'll have to go discuss because whether I'm going to say the school council funds that are for that are received from the ministry, the 125 and the $500 cannot be used to pay for school for the police checks for volunteers.
I do want to add, though, if I may add, Ricardo, that the new PRC procedure, volunteers, the level of check no longer requires payment. right? So all volunteers, your PRC, unless you're doing some intense work one-on-one with students, you require a level 1 check, which does not require payment. And so I'll drop in the link for you, our new police record check procedure of the board. So you'll be able to read it and get a sense of what level is effectively required. Because one thing we know is that for volunteers in our system, you will most likely require level 1 unless you're doing an overnight trip or something intense with one-on-one with students.
The only Michelle, the only thing and I'm just putting it out there, and I'm not disputing what you said, is the other thing that someone had mentioned to me from that office was in regards to, like, not only school trips, is whether there's activities like there's some volunteers that are helping with their like football, volleyball team, table tennis, and that they have access to our students in and don't have on supervision. So that was the key word they used, is parents having access to our children without supervision to our students. So that was one of the things, and that's why when they said a more in-depth police check, the vulnerable sector check may be required.
Michelle, there's a follow-up question to the superintendent query. Despite multiple attempts to reach the superintendent by email and phone over an extended period, we have been unable to obtain a response. Could you please advise us on the appropriate next point of contact for addressing our concerns?
So the TDSB has a protocol that requires staff to respond to a parent caregiver inquiry or question, acknowledge it within 48 hours, and must provide a direct response within 5 days. So if that time has passed for you and you've received nothing, then it would be appropriate for you to reach out to the executive superintendent. Elizabeth Addo is the executive superintendent for LC2, and Jack Negro is the executive superintendent for LC1. And failing that, you can reach out to the Student and Family Support Office. You simply go there and complete and just report what your concerns are, and someone will follow up with you.
Okay, I've got an additional question, Michelle, and this involves principals. And the question is, here is my concern about saying principals will be the support for school councils. From the principal councils, 88% of principals and vice principals feel overwhelmed by the current demands of their role. Supporting school leaders means protecting the time they need to lead and support student success. So I guess the question is, how can they do this when they're already feeling this sense of being overwhelmed?
You know, it's a fair question, and there's no doubt what is taking place and the number of transitions and changes for next year may pose challenges at the local school level in all areas. What I will say to you is that principals have been made aware of this change, about the supports coming from the office that may not be available for them. And where a principal is unable to manage, that's when you lean on the superintendent. And then the superintendent is there to offer supports. And where that's not working, you lean on the executive superintendent. And where that's not working, you lean on the Student and Family Support Office, because you following that protocol ensures that the system is aware that there is a pressure at all levels in terms of ensuring that parent caregiver engagement and school council support happens. And so while schools have been informed, I have no doubt that for some, the transition will be challenging because they've had supports from our office for a very extended period of time. And so the hope is that if you find as parents and caregivers and in council members that it's not working, then you follow the board's protocol to message up that it is not working so the system can figure out how it's going to effectively respond to that need.
Michelle, there's another principal question, and I suspect that the answer you just gave will be the same for this one, but I will just say that their principal is being moved to a different school for 2 months before he retires. They emailed the superintendent, who advised that this was in the best interest of their school. However, the entire school community disagrees. What more can we do to allow the principal to complete his tenure and transition in a new principal? So I'm assuming it's the same thing, go to the executive superintendent and then the parent office?
It would be. I would also add, I guess I'm hearing that the school that the superintendent used the SSON to guide that retirement, which means council was somewhat consulted around that process in a timely manner. And if that did not
clear.
occur,
Yeah, that's not clear in her question.
and if that did not occur, then that's an avenue for school council to take up with the principal, because there's a clear process outlined around whether there's going to be a retirement or a change of leadership at the school, that the school council chair is notified, and then the rest of the process, and then the SSON, sorry, the school statement of needs is consulted to ensure that the transition is smooth and that the superintendent is aware of what's taking place. But I may also say that there could be variables that you are not privy to, that the superintendent cannot make privy, about why that change or shift may or may not be happening. So keep that in mind as well.
Michelle, there's another question in regards to if there is no executive team. I'm not exactly sure what they mean, but in terms of that executive team. But the concern is will the elections process, and I hope this is in regards to school council, will it still continue without in the absence of our office and the absence of I guess what they believe is structures in place for it to occur?
Absolutely. So school councils are governed more so by Regulation 612, which is ministry directives. And in Regulation 612, it states very clearly that every school board is required to ensure that every school has a school council. The legislation goes even further to state that every principal must ensure that a school council election takes place every year in that school by supporting the elections process. So absolutely, school council should continue. Most principals should be aware that school councils are to happen. And the legislation also states this year's council that's active right now remains sitting as council until the first meeting of the newly elected council. So what that means that you should be active right through into the next year, thereby enabling you to ensure that in collaborating with the principal that elections are held at the local school level.
Michelle, may I add something to that?
Go ahead, please.
I was a little concerned when it said the executive team. So I just want to make clear, as I've said in all of our workshops this year, is that the school council elections vote for the parent caregiver members as the number determined by your bylaws. Once those parent caregiver members are elected, they then vote for the executive. If they wish to run again next year, then they have to put their names in as a nomination, and there has to be an election, or if it's the number required and no extras, then they're all acclaimed.
Thanks for that, Nancy.
You don't vote for an executive, you vote for your council, and then they vote for their executive.
Yeah. So I just, sorry for cutting off, Nancy, because I just want to make sure that everybody heard what you said. So you don't vote, you vote for the membership first, then you vote for the executive. Okay. So one of the things that I also want to point out is that in the chat, Michelle has graciously put down our website. Also, I just want to point out that the videos that including this one will be put on our and including the trainings that the other workshops that we did are all under PCCEO YouTube. So you go to PC YouTube to find the videos, find the videos there. If there's no other comments, Nancy, is there any other Q&A?
Yeah, there's 2 more questions came in.
Okay.
Our school students keep asking for help with stress management, self-image, etc. We don't have the funds to hire a professional speaker. So can a school council executive who helps with such issues for special needs kids and seniors in the community address the school at a school assembly and give a presentation on stress management? If so, does the person need any other credentials, etc., other than the police check and the school's permission? So they're asking if the school council executive who is trained in stress management is allowed to make an address to the school on that topic.
So let me begin with that one. First, if there's payment involved, that's deemed a clear conflict of interest. So you cannot pay a council exec to do a service for council. So that's the first consideration. The second consideration is that there are TDSB staff who should be able to come in and do this presentation for council. We have so many social workers across our district who can probably come out and support this. We have a number of staff that the principal may want to explore and council may want to explore with the principal. TDSB also has a list of vendors where not all of them are really expensive. So, what I'm hearing you say is school council has spent its $1,500. Depending on the size of your school, every council gets a minimum of 3, maximum of 1,000. You also get an additional 500. So you either have $1,500 or $800. I'm assuming that you've used those. If not, those are resources that can be used to support a speaker coming in. So the idea around that is there are just a couple things for you to consider prior to that route. And also that it's a conversation with the principal around whether there's an appropriate person who can come out and support you.
The follow up from the questioner was, could that school council member do it as a volunteer?
Again, the conflict still entails because it's a council member within a council event, right? And so it still provides that individual what we call preference and undue access because of the role that they play, right? And so that's what we want you to consider, because I'm assuming within your bylaws you have clear language around conflict of interest, and that could be deemed as such.
Another question, thank you, Michelle. Another question is, can you please suggest a way of using our recommendation to principal function without creating defensiveness on the part of the principal? How are principals trained to understand this function, and how do they prefer to receive these recommendations?
So as one who leads training and presentation with council, they are fully aware that council is an advisory body, right? And that they're there to provide advice, and that the principal is required to respond to that advice, right? And the way I'm going to say this is it's through collaborative talk, collaborative discourse that the relationship works with council and principal leadership, right? And so whether all are aware, but they've been all told of the function of council as an advisory body and their requirement to respond. And so here are a couple things I ask you to think about as council. One, that you keep your recommendations clearly within your council meetings and noted and recorded. Be clear who the speaker is. So council principals are required to attend meetings or send and designate. So it's an appropriate place for council to ask or put forward their requests and recommendation to leadership. Challenging when you do multiple requests outside of a meeting, then the question is council asking or individual members asking? So please try to keep those requests within your meetings with formalized recommendations or motions coming out of council to principal, so it helps them to be aware. The other thing I want to talk about is executives, meaning your chair, co-chair, or your secretary treasurer that creates that executive body. I always encourage that you consider just regular check-ins with your principal where you're keeping them updated of what you're doing, just making them aware of what some of the priorities are for council. So you may want to just schedule those meetings prior to your council meetings so it becomes a collaboration throughout to build relationships. And I do request that those be set and not just pop and drop in. And pop and drop in may work, depends on the principal, but sometimes the pop and drop in is challenging because you're popping in when the principal may be engaged in an activity or busy. So think about whether you can do set sort of agenda prep or updates with your principal around council work. Why? Because it keeps all stakeholders aware, but two, it builds strong relationships with the principal as well. And I'm going to say tone matters. How we engage and how we relay matters, right? I spoke earlier about the importance of civil discourse. You can disagree with your principal's position, as they have the right to disagree with your position on an issue. But I do believe that we should do it in a civil way and engage in civil discourse that doesn't resort to name calling or demeaning or devaluing each other in any way or in any space, right? And we practice that by spending time in our meetings, ensuring our meetings are ran effectively, where, how they should be ran, but also when we're sending our email communications, we pay attention to our language and we pay attention to tone. And if you find that an email communication, the tone is shifting, then you know it's time to get off the email and probably engage in an in-person dialogue. So Nancy, anything you want to add to that, or Ricardo?
Yeah, I actually do, because one of the things that has come up a lot for me through over the past year or so is principals and parents and caregivers, school council members have the same complaint, and that is that they feel that there is no ongoing communication between one another. People are doing things and they're not informing the other. And so for principals, they're saying this is, it's happening in my school and I don't know what's happening because nobody's sharing any information with me. And for parents and caregivers and school council members, they're saying principals are doing things and they're not communicating with me. It's about that communication, creating that communication, that each each of you understands what the other is doing. So it's just about doing that. It's and preparing. And the other, one of the things, and this is also for school council members. So a lot of the school council members will say, you know what? I come to the school council chair with this. They're not listening to me. They're listening to other people. Some of the school council chairs are saying, yeah, they come with ideas, but they haven't done their due diligence. I don't know where the money's going to be spent, how this event is going to roll out. I don't have an understanding. So really think about how best to communicate what you want to do and have those steps there as to how those things are going to play out, because that's very important in terms of that kind of that communication is understanding. And then I just go back to what Michelle spoke about earlier, is that tone, that way of communicating is so important, because one of the things that when a negative environment starts, it seems to build. So just to avoid that sort of thing from going on. Nancy, if you have something to add.
I would just reiterate what both of you have said. It begins and ends with relationships, just like in our personal lives. And when I was a school council member 100 years ago, I worked with many school principals at different schools, different levels that my kids were at. Some went really well because we just clicked right away, and some I really had to work at. And it meant sometimes, I remember one principal in particular, it meant talking to them about things other than school council. I remember sitting in the kindergarten room with him once, and his wife had just passed away, and he was worried about his son. And we talked about that, and it made a bit of a bond. That was a terrible situation, but it was just speaking to him as person to person without school council being in the middle. So sometimes as school council members and school council chairs, it falls to us to teach the principal how we can have a relationship, to lead that relationship building process, and to greet every roadblock with compassion, to try to understand where they're sitting, and principals are sitting in a hell of a spot right now, but to understand where they are, where we are, and that we're all working for the same thing. There's a writer down in the States, and she talks about the teacher's student and the parent's child, and they're the same. And how can we bring it together and to teach how we want to be treated ourselves? That's it.
I just want to go back, just because I wanted to mention something with, in terms of getting speakers and resources into the school. And one thing I appreciated about the earlier person that spoke about this was that they exhausted their funds, which is the intention, that you do exhaust those funds. But the other thing is that I always speak to is that to collaborate with other schools. Some of your schools are nearby, some of your feeder schools. So when you're having these events and you're having these speakers coming, sharing that expense lets that money go a little bit further. And the other thing is that it also hits a broader audience, and that's what the intention is that we our resources are limited, so why not try and get more for our dollar? I'm just putting in the Q&A my contact information. Michelle Monroe has also put in the chat the link for our web page, and I'm also going to share with you in a moment our QR code to get to that web page as well. So we're just going to move on to the next slide. And yes, it is a poll, and it's just our final poll. And I'm just going to bring that up for you. Just one more, please. Okay. Here we go. Okay. This is our final poll, and then we'll move to our final comments. And the poll will end at 8:26. 27, sorry. Okay, thank you. I'm just going to end the poll now. Okay. Okay. So one of the things we've been speaking about during our presentations is this toolkit that we're going to be providing for parents. Now, initially, we're going to be providing this toolkit as a kind of like add-on to the resources that we currently already had, and you still having to support our support as the parent caregiver community engagement office. We have um, um, since we learned of this new announcement in terms of the PCCEO office no longer being around for in September of 2026, we've moved towards providing a more robust kit that will be available to you, and we are currently working on that with Nancy. She's already supplied me with a plethora of information that I have to digest and try and make it in a way that student councils can take advantage. But we hope that this helps you in terms of. I'm getting a real bad echo here. In terms of what we're doing in the future, what school councils need in the future. So finally, this is our school council resources. There's the QR code. There's our information. And then while you're looking at this and taking that information down, Michelle or Nancy, if you'd like to provide some final comments. So finally, this is our school council resources. There's the QR code. There's our information. And then while you're looking at this, taking that information, down, Michelle, or next.